Okay, so now we should be approaching the 1000 elo mark. So let's go ahead and see what we can play. So obviously, just like the first game, d4, d5 is the type of thing that I'm gonna play here. So he's gonna play the London system probably. Um, I'm assuming just your standard, London system. So I'm trying to think of how I should play against this. I would personally never play this, and then I play c5 and queen b6. But I'm just gonna let's just play simple, right? Let's just develop this knight, and then he develops his knight as well. So this is actually interesting. This is the aggressive one. I can't remember what it's called. Um, some moves I like are c5, and I like also e6. But I mean, realistically, also I would play knight c6 and go like this. Bishop takes bishop, knight takes. The problem is I don't know if I really want to run into that, so I might just try to avoid it by like developing my bishop first. Just develop the bishop first, and then I'll do the same thing he does, which is, you know, not actually playing the stuff that people play when they play the Lund system. So we're gonna put our pieces on kind of the same squares that we did before. He actually moves his bishop again, which is kind of funny. I'm not super worried about it since castling is available. That's what I'm gonna play because that's kind of what we do. That's the habit thing. Now he's trying to trade off the bishops. I'm gonna do that because it's equal pieces. Just gonna go ahead and trade them. And then here I usually like to play c5, but I think if I'm following the habits, I'm just gonna develop my pieces to like their standard squares, and then I'll move the queen, and then I will you know bring the rooks to the center. So here he's attacking my bishop, and I'm not sure if it's in the actual habits. I'm pretty sure it is, which is not to trade the bishops for knights. So I'm not going to do that. So if you look at other squares my bishop could go, there's not a lot of good ones, right? Except for e7, which is actually a good square for a few reasons. Like the pin was pretty annoying, and then I think it's also the safest square to move away from the attack. Um, so he moves his bishop back, which is fine. Um, okay. There's actually okay. So there's a tactic that that I'm spotting here, which I'll briefly mention. I'm not gonna play it because I think this would, not be very habit-like. But the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about following the habits was playing queen d7 to connect the rooks. Right. The problem is if queen d7, there's knight takes c7. Right. Except I think that would be a huge blunder, because if he plays knight takes c7 after rook c8, his knight is attacked, and if he tries to move his knight back to b5, after we play knight b4, we're attacking his queen and c7, and we're going to be forking him and picking up the rook because our rook that is on c8 defends c2. So I think that would be completely winning for us. But I feel like I shouldn't play that. Um, because I feel like it wouldn't be very habit-like. Although I don't really know what else we would play, right? Because we cannot really defend this pawn. So I mean, the same thing works if we play a6. So maybe, you know what? Maybe I will play queen c7. If he takes this, which he does, which is, of course, as we know, a huge mistake, rook c8 can be played, and we can win the game this way, which I'm kind of tempted to do, mainly because I want to get to a higher elo where they don't, they will be a little bit more challenging. Um, but also because I think that line might be difficult to spot, so I think I'm actually not going to play that. Instead, maybe I will play just bringing the rooks to the center, which is going to be a huge miss, obviously. But it is what it is. And so now he moves his knight back. I'm just going to move the other rook to the center here. So now the habits are almost complete. I actually kind of forgot that we have to play 6, which I'm just going to do now. Okay. Now the habits are complete and we can start to do other stuff. So what we'll notice is that queen looks at the knight, right? That could be a potential tactic. Um, He's got a good king safety over here. We can always try to attack his bishop. I think a lot of the time in the London system, that's kind of what you end up doing. But I think for now, I'm going to play something like a6. So I think the best move on the previous turn was knight h5, but I want to try to not play anything too crazy. So now we kind of have to think of a plan. And I think knight h5 is actually findable, so I'm going to play it. Because if you think about it, in the London system, just something that's good to know is that their bishop, their f4 bishop is like that's their whole thing. They love the f4 bishop. And as you can see, the f4 bishop has nowhere to go in this position. That will stop it from being taken by one of my knights, which will give us, it'll take away his pride and joy. So I think it's reasonable to play the move knight h5 because his bishop has nowhere to go. So now he's taking a long think after he's been playing pretty quickly the entire game. And I'll go back in the analysis and show the way to win the game earlier. Okay, but let's go to the most recent position. Okay, so this is actually, I'm surprised you found this because I thought this was for sure the best move for white. So for black, I think typically I would play something like this, right? Because we're not worried about discovery since we attack his bishop. Another thing we could do is just take the bishop now immediately anyway, right? And go into this line where we trade queens with one another. Or we could just move the queen. We could also trade the knights, but then he gets to get away with what we were doing. So I think the most habit-like, because again we can take this, but I think the most habit-like is maybe just moving my queen. Although I kind of want this game to be over, so I'm just gonna take his. Okay, this is a good move from him as well. I think now I'm gonna put my queen onto the open file here, or the semi-open file, I mean. And now I'll take like this, which we can use to try to break the center, which we did in the another game. I think I recorded that one. So I think his only intention here is to defend this pawn. I'm not super worried about it. Like I mentioned, I'm gonna try to open the center like this. We're gonna get the rooks flowing. We're gonna have a nice bishop here on the square, right, looking over at him here. It's gonna be really nice. This is actually not a bad move. We would like to play something like e5 to try to get our pawns more advanced, but the problem is that he could just simply take our pawn here. So we could intermezzo him by playing something like d4 and then e5 to prevent the knight from even controlling the square at all. Could also attack it with the bishop, but I think the idea here I think we can just go with d5. Because if you think about it, it makes sense, right? The idea is that a lot of the time when you calculate, and I did this in the other game as well, the game where we were potentially going to get forked here on e8. And as you calculate a line and there's a problem, and then you go back to before you play the move and you try to find a solution to the problem. So here we would love to play e5, but we can't because this pawn hangs. So first we move the pawn out of the way, then he moves his knight, and then we could play, if we wanted to, now we could push the pawn again. If that's the best move, which I don't really think it is. However, I would personally take here for sure, because if he trades, then the pawn's defended, and if he takes it like this, I wonder if we could bully away the queen with some sort of rook move. But anyway, since I talked about it before, I'll play this, which I don't think is a good move because I think he has the move f6, which would require some. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is fine. I think he definitely messed up a little bit here. So he does decide to play. I'm just going to go ahead and, because I'm getting a little bit low on time, I'm just going to pick up a free pawn here. We're not worried about him trying to checkmate us because number one, the queen can always come back. And number two, he could have played something like g6. So here's actually an interesting moment. I think something that might be useful to see. I'm pretty much never going to take this pawn because our opponent's pawn is going to be like a nice little shield to us. The only way that this could end up being dangerous is if somehow he's able to enter his queen in, right? Because a move that we would like to, like when you look at the position, like, okay, well, black's whole thing here is that they have this passed d pawn, so we would like to just push the d pawn all the way and promote. But I think the problem with immediately pushing is that it allows queen f6, and then when his queen comes around, we might have some issues. So I think a good move, prophylaxis of all of that, would first be to move the queen back, and then decide to play this move d3 and this move e4, because his queen can no longer infiltrate. Okay, so now let's go ahead and play the e4 d3 and get our pawns rolling, right? Because now his queen cannot enter the position. So here he's trying to trade the queens. I'm just gonna continue and push here, and also play a little bit faster because um, we don't want to get flagged. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to win this pawn back. He's probably going to try to play with the majority that he has on the queen side. Oh, this is just a huge blunder. This might be the worst move I've ever seen in my life. This is genuinely insane. Because now we have two passed pawns that are going to roll down the board here. So we can play this move here with tempo. So we're not afraid of something like push, because we'll just trade and play king f7 to prevent f7 being played by the white pieces. So yeah, I mean, this is, yeah. So just like this. He takes, and then to prevent this fork, we're just going to put our king on that square, and then walk the pawn down to promotion. So yeah, very easy victory here. I think I'm having trouble following the habits. I feel like the moves I'm playing aren't super. You know, I'm trying not to play anything too complicated, but sometimes it's like, you know, it's just going to be that way. So I could have promoted immediately and have him sack the rook, but better, even better than that, is to first protect the promotion square again like this. And here, let's go like this. Check him like this, and then depending on where he goes, let's go like this. I don't know if there's a quicker way, but this will get the job done. And that brings us to the 1000 elo, so not too bad.